Okay, welcome to part 4. Last time I stopped off, I just created a test for this create service for method right here. And let me just run all the specs right now. So let's do bundle exec rake, just to see that everything's green at this point, and it is. And this is a good time to go ahead and test this gem, what I have so far, within a real world QuickBooks Ruby implementation to see if it extends and does what I want it to do. So to do that, I'm going to go to another tmux window here, and let me just kill one of these panes off. And let me switch to the directory where the QuickBooks Ruby project is. And where is that? Okay, that would be my minimal cast sample project. And let me edit the gem file there. Okay, and there we go. Base, and I'm going to point it towards the path. Use the path switch here, and you're going to want to make an absolute path to, where do I have this? I have this in GitHub, Labs, QuickBooks Ruby base directory. Okay, let's save it. Let me just exit out of it too, and let's bundle that up with this project. Okay, everything looks good. And let's go into the Rails console. Oops, I forgot to do something. All right, I need to configure the QuickBooks base configure here, because this project, I believe, does not have the default setting. So let me go into the config, initializer, QuickBooks, and here we have that consumer key. So let me set this up with how this project is set up, and this will be a good test. So we'll do configure, and this is just going to be off the account settings, just like that. Secret. This is company ID. And this is company ID. Okay, and by default, if you remember, the default in here is this too, so we're okay right there. All right, so that looks good. Let's go back into the Rails console. And this is going to test it right now because it's going to be calling that namespace. So looks like the namespace is in fine. Base looks good. So it looks like everything's being included fine. But let's go ahead and do a test by initializing this base class. One thing that's worth mentioning also is if you get a problem up in when you do the bundle after you include, it may be because your git ls files is incorrect. It may throw a warning error there just a little heads up. Okay, let's go back into this. Let's take I believe, let me look at my, okay, I know my account is the last account. Okay, so let me just run through that test I was talking about by initializing the class. So base, new, count last, and let me do a vendor service. Okay, this looks good. Let me just query my vendors here. What I'm doing now, we'll test a query to, let's do given name, a query to QuickBooks. Okay, that is because I have to do service, and that doesn't work either, so my service is not exposed. It doesn't look like I should have exposed that service. And what I'm talking about is here I need to expose this, and it's not being done, and that, so it needs to have a reader service here. Okay, and let me go back. Now, if you're working, like I just made a change to this QuickBooks base RB file. If you need to test, like I am in a console right now, you can do this without having to get out of the console and restart the console by running, just doing a load command on the file you changed. So, for example, here, I'm going to get the full path of, okay, it says there's a buffer not loaded here. Let me just make sure I get that changed. Okay, and let me rerun this echo command, and I'm going to get the full path here, save it, and from the console here I'm going to run a load command on that exact file I changed. So now the service should be exposed, but I'm going to have to re-initialize the class too. So let me do that. Go back to the service here, and we should get the given names. Okay, we don't. There's a Intuit request exception. So let me debug that. Alright, let me go up and see what's going on. Now, so at least the service is exposed correctly, because I'm getting a different kind of error here, and I'm getting a QuickBooks Intuit request exception error that most likely has something to do with something is not being set in. I'm going to look at, here's just a header that gets returned back, not a header but an object, and looks like my secret and my key are nil, and it might be because I recently changed my tokens. So I am going to have to, let me source my profile, because I think that these I'm talking about these two. This environmental variable is not set in my shell. So let's just go back into the Rails console here. Let me run this again, and let me run the service again, and there we go. So the gem is working, and that is a good sign right now. But I'm going to be coming back and forth to this, but this is a very important part of the testing, which is just testing it locally, using the path option in the gem install in the bundle file here. Hi, I'm back a little bit into the future. I forwarded it ahead and I've done some more things to the base class, like I've created a QuickBooks Ruby model, and just done some other methods, a show method, nothing that I thought was too significant or relayed any new information. It was pretty much the same pattern. Added a fixtures directory, which I'm using to test the show method. Now, what I also started doing was working on the Readme, which I feel is very important. Now, I didn't do any inline comments, and this is a recommended practice. And when you look at the gem guides, it is recommended that you do some sort of commenting. I haven't done that, and I don't find them that useful. I don't use RDoc myself that much, and especially when you're trying to get a gem pushed out the door to see whether it's going to get some uptake, others are going to find it useful. Spending too much time doing commenting can be a real hindrance, but I do think writing a good README is important. So that's what I started here. Started writing up the README. By default, the bundle gem scaffolding we did back in part 1 will give you the README with a nice little, gives you the installation here. I changed the description and some other things, and have been adding much more information now, like usage and examples. One thing I want to show too is a really excellent method for writing your README and displaying it before posting it. Now, you might have a Markdown editor with a preview or something like that, but when you're in Vim, I like to write in Vim too, of course. There isn't a lot of great options, but there is one terrific one that I highly recommend if you're using an editor, a non-GUI editor like Vim, or something else that doesn't have an adequate preview. And even if it does have an adequate preview, it may not have the same preview that GitHub. GitHub has a special version of Markdown. You can do more things with it. So your preview in Markdown may not be as rich and full-featured as the GitHub Markdown. So the name of the gem that does this is, let me shift over, and first let's get these window panes even, and I'm going to switch over to this right window pane. And the name of the gem is called GitHub Markdown Preview. So to install it, you don't need it in your gem file or in your gem spec file. You just install it. A gem install GitHub Markdown Preview, and you simply just pass in the file you want to do this preview, which is going to be readme.md here. We run this, and it's going to give us this output called preview available. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, and it's just a file link, and we can run this in the browser. So it says preview available at file users blah blah blah. I'm going to copy this, then go over to the browser, open up a new tab, paste in, and there we have the README. And again, like I was stating, this is the GitHub Markdown preview. So this is exactly how it's going to look when you actually push it live. And you can do all this in development. Let me demonstrate the workflow here a little bit. So you would you keep the service running over here in the pane here. So it's just running over in this right pane. I'm going to go and make a change. Let's go over to the service. I'm just going to put a little comment here. Do a create. Or an update. Okay, I'm going to save. Go back out to the browser. Just hit reload. And those changes are going to come in right there. This is what I just did here. So it's a fantastic tool. Highly recommend you look into it. I love it. Use it all the time. And you can see too, I did spend a good amount of time on the Readme. I have good usage section. I go over each of the methods that are going to be used regularly. I don't put every single one that's available on the public API, but the ones that you're going to use a lot, I did put pretty extensive examples. I have a pretty good configuration section explaining how to get started, getting configured. Because there could be a little stumbling block with these persistent tokens and understanding that, but it's a vital part of using the class. So, and I have configuration defaults. So I recommend also that you spend a good amount of time on your Readme and to help the adoption and help others to use what you have done. All right, with that, I am done. So let's get this bad boy pushed up to GitHub. And first, let me just run the specs, make sure everything's running. All right, okay, we got all green. Let's go back out to my GitHub account. And I'm gonna make a new repository. Let's call it quickbooks-ruby-base. Do a description. Why don't I just copy and paste that from the Readme? Okay, we'll make it public. And I'm going to skip these two because we already have a git ignore and a license. Okay, let's create the repository. Let's go back to the command line. Now we already have the git int has been run already. And let's take a look at the git status. Let's see what is going on here. Okay. If you notice, I have an alias gs for git status. That's what that. If you notice, I just did gs there. That is an alias for git status. And looking, we have this readme md.html that has not been included into the tracked files. That is because we are still running the GitHub Markdown preview. So I'm going to Control-C, get out of that. We're done with that. Let's go back. Let's check out the git status again. And let me add these files that are not staged for commit. I'm going to do GA, that's alias for git add. I'm doing each one just so I don't put something in a tracked file that I do not want to be tracked. So I'm just being careful. I could have probably just added everything there, which I end up doing anyway. But this helps me go through the paces of adding each file and knowing and giving it a thought that it should be tracked. So let's do git status again. Let me check now just to make sure that I got everything I want in here, and things I don't want shouldn't be in here. Okay, we have base RB, config RB, got the gem spec, got our fixtures, spec helper, and the spec itself. Okay, everything is looking good. So let's do commit. I have another alias here, which is GCA, which is git commit all. This is going to give me a window where I can write a longer comment. Here I'm just going to, for this comment, we're going to call it initial commit. Let me make sure the spelling was good on that there. See, I don't know how to spell initial sometimes. Alright, so it's ready to push. Let's get that command that's over here. Copy and paste that. And let's push this. Push. Origin, what did it say? Origin master. Push. I don't know if you need all these. I don't know if they've updated that in a while, but I'm just gonna make sure I don't make any mistakes. So let's push this puppy. Alright. Let's check to see if it's live. Looks like my mouse is not working here. Let's try it again. And there we go. Okay, we're live on GitHub. Alright, now we want to publish to Ruby Gems. Okay, let's go to Ruby Gems and sign up. Email address, do my handle, password. I'll save that password. Okay. Alright, looks like I've successfully made an account here. Let's follow the directions. I do have a latest or later Ruby Gems version, so let's just go right to this. Here it says do a gem build. Okay, so gem build, quickbooks-ruby-base gem spec. Okay, that was looking good, I think. Well, we got a couple warnings. Let me read those. And these are just warnings here. No description specifies the first one. It looks like I got open-ended dependencies. And they're giving me a recommendation to not do that. But I'm going to keep moving. That's not too big a deal. Let's go see what the next command is. That's the gem push. Okay. So what I'm going to want to do is push that file right there. So gem push. Yes, I do have an account. And the password, let me put that in. Oops, I got an access denied. Let's try it again. Okay. Putting in my email. Paste in the password. Okay, looks like I signed in successfully. It's going to take a little bit of time to push this gem, so I'm going to come back in just a second. Okay, I'm back, and the gem was successfully pushed and registered. Let's just double check on that, actually, by searching the gems. Maybe this actually has not updated. That takes a little bit. There it is. All right. So I got my gem up there, and that is going to end the installment. This was a fourth part, a little over about an hour of content, and I thank you so much for watching and hope you learned, and hope to share more coming into the future. So You can subscribe to my YouTube channel or hang out and check my blog every once in a while, or even subscribe to the blog. I do have a newsletter that you can, if you're doing Ruby and QuickBooks integration work, I will be sending you, if you sign up for that, I'll send you a newsletter on the latest information in the Ruby and QuickBooks integration worlds. Okay, thanks a lot, and have a nice rest of the day.